What's going on, guys? It's the Reformation Keegan, and I'm back here with another quick video. So today we're going to be doing another comic analysis, one that I'm actually pretty intrigued by because it's more relatable than I think a lot of people assume, and hopefully this video will justify that. But we're talking about Paul Dini's great Batman, Heart of Hush. So I'm a huge Hush fan for many reasons, because I think with Hush there is a legitimate gripe that he has that you can look at, you can analyze, and you can say, you know what, he's kind of justified, even if you don't necessarily agree with his tactics. So in Paul Dini's Heart of Hush, I want to talk a bit about just relatability, about commonalities, and about the influence of what we would call the personal experience of the subject. So the subject here is obviously going to be Hush. But there's a lot more to this comic than I think meets the eye. So just based off of Detective Comics 846 right from the get-go, we have the reason why Hush is acting the way he is. And this is probably the closest to a sequel to the original Hush as we're going to get. And I know right now that Jeff Loeb is still writing the authentic second Hush, but to me, this is the proper sequel, in my humble opinion. So Hush, he doesn't forgive Thomas Wayne because both of his parents do not or cannot survive. So his mom does survive, but his father does not. And from the get-go, we come to understand why Tommy Elliot hates his father so much. And he hates him for the reason that I think a lot of younger children would hate their father if this happened to them, and it's because of physical abuse. So we get a really unique sense of imagery here. We see Tommy Elliot look at his mom, who's wrapped up in bandages, and she says for him to hush because he's almost a gasp. And she claims that he and Bruce will become really good friends because in this story, they're very close. They're still young, but they're very, very tight. And this imagery is also, it establishes a theme of foreshadowing for Hush, because the bandages are pretty much identical to what we're going to see going forward with Hush. And her telling him to hush is almost like that epiphany that you would see in literature. There's one moment that encapsulates a grander narrative. So I thought that was a really striking, image. But there's another really good quote here that Hush says, and he says, "Beware the man who can strike from a distance." So that is going to be another sense of foreshadowing for the remainder of the story. And it's always the strikes that you don't see coming that hurt literally and metaphorically the most, as we're going to see going forward with Hush in general. So what happens is Tommy, he tampers with the brakes of the car that his parents are driving in, and he calls it more an act of self-preservation than murder, because Tommy is doing this obviously to try and kill them. That's obvious, which would be murder. But I think what Tommy's trying to do is he's trying to give us a reason on why he's doing what he's doing, and it's not just out of blind fury, even though there is a huge theme of rage involved. So Tommy tells Bruce that his dad wasn't always good to him, and that his mom would make him study, Aristotle, Musashi, and Caesar. And this is in order to develop logic and strategy. So if you look back at rhetoric, people like Caesar and Aristotle, they're very, very influential in the rhetorical world when looking at philosophies, ideologies, and day-to-day reasoning. So there's a lot of intertextuality here, in a way, because if you can connect Aristotle to other acts of Batman or Batman villains, that's where the intertextuality will be, even though it is not direct intertextuality. So you're taking reference from other stories and other forms of literature, and you're incorporating it into the literature that you're writing to get a bigger point across. So these quotes brought in from Aristotle, they show that, and what they do is they directly reference the experiences of Tommy Elliot, aka Hush. So this is also apparent with Hush today because he lurks in the background. So he uses this logic and strategy to lurk in the background to hit Batman with something that he least expects, which we find out later is the basically abduction and the robbery, for lack of a better term, of Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman's heart. Martha also, she talks to Tommy's mom in the second issue of this, which would be Detective Comics 847, and she convinces Tommy Elliott's mom for Tommy to go to camp with Bruce. And it looks like it's all going well, but then his mom comes back and takes him home, and some kid whispers, "Mama's boy." And Tommy does not take to this lightly. So he grabs something and he goes, "Bow!" And he completely smashes this kid, and yelling that he's gonna kill him, and just this anger comes through. And it's not blind anger like I mentioned earlier, it's a legitimate anger that you can relate to because you're just trying to live your life as a kid, and what's happening is you're getting exposed publicly, which is embarrassing. It's utterly embarrassing. So what Tommy Elliott does, he does this out of anger and embarrassment, and it's embarrassment deriving from anger and vice versa. So it gives you a justification on why Tommy Elliott is acting the way he is, even if you can't condone the violence. And what happens from this due to his anger is he's deemed insane and he's confined for the rest of the summer. And he ends up meeting Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow. So really, really nice flow here to this writing from Paul Dini. So Tommy, because of this, thinks that he's set up by the Waynes for his mother to show up at the camp and do this. And he thinks that Bruce was laughing at him when Bruce was not laughing at him. And this is where the embarrassment comes in, and this eventually equals to post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's a traumatic incident that only the character fully believes happened, and the incident still isn't great, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's traumatic. But Hush finds it traumatic because of all the stuff that he's gone through previously with his father. So there's this huge theme of post-traumatic stress disorder that starts from early childhood and then continues throughout his childhood and then eventually to his full adulthood. And I think it's really, really well written by Paul Dini. Another thing, too, to mention is that Crane ends up abducting a disturbed, I assume, yet innocent child named Colin, which the Scarecrow makes fearful of bats, even though the kid is already fearful and troubled himself. And he also injects him with venom to fight Batman. So this is just pure strategy, and this actually goes with the Aristotle theme of strategy in general. And I think that it's a really nice intertextual outlook, even though it's from a different text. So it's really a cross intertextual method of writing here, and I think it works very well. And what happens is this is all a distraction from Hush. And when he says, when he says that it's, a hit from the distance that is going to make you pay, this is what he means by this, because he uses this all as a distraction and as a ruse for Batman so he can eventually get to Selina Kyle, because Selina Kyle is the one thing that really, really affects Bruce's heart the most. He doesn't have his parents anymore. So the next closest thing is the woman, so far in the canon, arguably, that he's the closest to. So to get to Bruce, he takes her heart, because the heart is the key to love. And this is symbolic since Selina often just makes exceptions for Batman. Batman makes exceptions for Catwoman. So they make exceptions for each other because their heart is infected with that love that they have, but they just can't communicate that love fully to each other. But Hush knows. And as we see too, Tommy, he grows more angry towards his mom because she constantly compares him to Bruce. Bruce is like the star pupil to her and what she wanted Tommy to aspire to be, because Bruce, when both his parents were murdered, overcame adversity, and she thinks that Tommy has not reached his full potential and that Tommy sits and sulks. And this is very apparent too, when he's getting into relationships that she doesn't want him to be involved in, and she ends up taking the fortune from him so she can absolve him of what she thinks is, complacency and mental distractions. And taking away funds for that, in his mom's opinion, is going to positively affect him going forward, where he can almost start with a clean slate and start from scratch. Tommy doesn't see it that way, and he ends up taking out his own mother out of this frustration, especially due to the fact that he got abused by his father, and his mother just sat around and did nothing because she was too worried to be alone herself. So it's a double-edged sword. It's a juxtaposed paradox in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of good stuff in this 5-issue miniseries, and Paul Dini is one of my favorite writers. So I was really, really happy that I had the opportunity to read this and also have it in trade. And one of the things, too, that I want to mention before I'm done is comparisons by a parent negatively affect the child in childhood. Because if a parent expects too much out of their child, their reasonings become counterproductive, and the child becomes exactly what you don't want them to become. This can be derived from personal experience, or this can also be derived from other literature that you have read. Both count. And when a parent puts constant pressure on their child to do things and to achieve a certain status in society and to behave in a way that they deem appropriate always, it's not practical. It's not fully practical. Sometimes it is, but in this instance, it is not. And this is a theme of realism that I think Paul Dini exploits very well. So that's what I think. It's what I think of Batman Heart of Hush. I think this was really, really great. I would definitely reread it again. There's a lot of good content in here. For 5 issues, I think it's really damn near perfect, if I say. So let me know what you guys think, because I love good Batman stories. They are pretty in tune to what I'm interested in, and I'm going to be reading a lot more going forward. But at the same time, I want to dig deeper into some other characters too. I have all 3 volumes of Superman Earth 1 now, which I'm hoping to get to relatively soon. And I still have a couple more Batman stories to read before the summer's officially over. In the meantime, we're about to hit 500 subscribers, so please subscribe if you have not. And we're about to hit 3,000 watch hours. So if we can hit 3,000 watch hours, I can become a YouTube partner and put out better and more content for you going forward. So please hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave a like and a comment. If you want me to analyze any other comics, let me know. Put them in the comments. If you want me to do any other forms of videos on here, let me know. I have my wrestling matches on here. I have these analyses. I even did a food taste video, so let me know what else you want to see. Maybe some watch-alongs for wrestling matches or Batman animated series episodes. I'm interested in that too. You let me know what content you want, and we will put it out for you if possible. So let me know what you think, and I will see you soon.